Hello! Welcome to whatever week this is of me doing my reading course. Yeah! I accomplished quite a bit this week. Was it because I had a meeting with my supervisor and she said to do these things before I saw her, so then I felt guilty if I didn't do them? Yes, but guilt works sometimes. What did I do? I emailed the copyright holders of Le Guin. And I went to the collection that I'm going to be doing some research with. By the way, this collection I'm doing my research with is in a library that I can see with my own eyes right now. That's how close it is to me. And the reason I don't go there is complicated. It's really not. There's lore behind it. Basically, I would rather sit in my room and read than get up and walk a minute down to the library and read in a place that's not my room/apartment, because here I have food and tea and I can just sit around. Why would I go there? Anyways, the other thing is that's famously the library where I walked in with a bloody face and they called the paramedics on me. Yeah, so sometimes I feel a little nervous going back there. But it went well, guys. It went well. I looked at the 4 copies they had of the Tombs of Atuan, and it was really cool. It was awesome because the 4 copies that were there were not copies I'd seen before. I have 2 copies, and I have the omnibus illustrated edition, but they were completely different copies than the 2 I had. And I was able to look at the cover art, and the great thing is, too, that there is a bibliographic database of science fiction books. I think it's, like, literally called SF Database or something like that. So I was able to, like, pull the editions I had from there, so I didn't have to write everything, all the details of the edition down. I just pulled the link and made some notes and observations of my own. And then they even had the initial, like, magazine issue that it was published in. There was like an abridged version published first in the magazine, so I got to read that. It was cool. And then they have on the science fiction database website too a list of reviews, like early reviews, concurrent, contemporary reviews of the book, if you will. So I requested the magazine issue with the very first review for the Tombs of Atuan by named man Tim White. Now, Tim White, hide your kids, hide your wife, you're my enemy now. I can't believe I just made a hide your kids, hide your wife reference. It's so fucking cringy. Sorry. I'm your enemy now because the review you gave to the Tombs of Atuan was completely wrong in every way. Mainly, it was wrong in an incredible way for my thesis, which is that he just completely missed the fact that the Tombs of Atuan is like a giant metaphor for the patriarchy and escaping the patriarchy, and he just like that just went so far over his head, which he was a white man in the 70s reading science fiction. Yeah, of course that'd go over his head. But he gave me a lot of fodder to work with that in that one review. So when I go back, I want to request more of the magazine issues with like the contemporary reviews, because I think that's really fascinating. On to what I read. I finished this just now, the mixed media book. I did get a little bit more out of the later chapters. There was an interesting, like, kind of only like a page or 2 discussion on like fiction and feminist circles and thoughts, which I thought was really interesting. And there's just a lot of good like feminist book history analysis in here. And then when I was talking to my supervisor, she was saying like the kind of difference between focusing on like feminist presses specifically and like feminist authors publishing with like commercial mainstream presses, and how the latter is kind of understudied in favor of like really honing in on these like feminist collective presses. And it's interesting because Le Guin was like a feminist publishing with mainstream presses, even though she wasn't really an avowed feminist until like much later in her career. Like when she published the Tombs of Atuan, she wasn't like feminist, anarchist, anti-capitalist theorist number 1 that she like ended up being. Anyways, book that I'm reading the Parable of the Talents, second Parable of the Sower. There's only 2. This is probably the most depressing and fucked up book I've ever read. I don't know why I'm reading it right now. Like, it's really not putting me in a good mood because of how absolutely depressing this book is. It's like a competition of like, how could I write just like the worst person possible? Like, Octavia Butler was like, well, let me just write about the worst people ever, but like make it super ambiguous, so you have to kind of decide which one's worst. And for no one, I know no one watching this has read The Parable of the Talents probably, so you have no idea what I'm talking about. But like, I think that Marcus is by far the worst person than Lauren. Like, holy shit, he becomes like a Make America Great Again Trump like preacher for like the alt-right white supremacy church. He's not white, by the way. And you know that, you know, enslaved his sister, even though he was also a slave before that. And yeah, Lauren runs a cult, but at least the cult isn't a white supremacist cult. Like, on that alone, Mark is the worst person. And he captured. Oh, I can't. This book is like, if you want to be like depressed, read this book. But anyways, that's it for today. Thank you and goodbye.